It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands post-game show after a big road victory as Big Ten play in the year of 2025 has begun as the Purdue Boilermakers take care of Minnesota handedly in the second half. Really, really nice effort from the big three, obviously, as per usual. Braden Smith, Kaufman-Renn, and Fletcher Loyer absolutely on fire and really started to find their groove in the second half. Some lineup changes to start the game that Kraig and Joe, if you watch any of their preview work, kind of reference that might be a thing. And so we're going to get into a lot of different layers of the conversation here tonight. Joining me as always, well, actually, they're always here, and now I'm joining them, is Craig Bowers and, of course, Joe Jackson here. So I'm excited to talk about a victorious Purdue Boilermakers because it seems like every time I'm on the postgame show, Purdue loses. So how we doing, gentlemen? Happy New Year. Boilers win.
100%. And it's any road win in the Big Ten is a good win. And if you talk to any Big Ten coaches, if you talk to Matt Painter, they will tell you how difficult it is to win on the road. Obviously, we know Minnesota is not a top-tier team in this league. But anytime you go on the road in the Big Ten, it's going to be difficult. And Minnesota showed that in the first half. Braden kind of got off to a slow start. If Braden shoots his game percentage or season percentage from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, this one's never really in question, probably even early on. But nonetheless, pulled it out in the end in convincing fashion. And before we jump anywhere, I think we just need to give some flowers on a couple of things. Braden Smith tonight became the first player to hit 1,000 points, 500 assists, and 400 rebounds before their junior season is over in Big Ten history. In the history of the Big Ten.
Wow.
That's a lot of players, just in case anybody wondered. Secondly, Coach Matt Painter became the fourth winningest coach all time in specifically Big Ten conference wins. He already was the fourth winningest coach in terms of all wins, but in terms of Big Ten conference wins, become ties for the fourth most winning coach with Piggy Lambert, who I believe, where did Piggy Lambert coach? Joe, do you know this? Or are you too young for that?
I'm too young for that one.
Was he Michigan State or was he Minnesota?
The look on Joe's face when you asked who Piggy Lambert was.
I feel like it was Michigan State, but I'm not positive. Anyway, go ahead with your immediate thoughts, Joe, and we'll come back to Piggy Lambert.
Yeah, so
oh shit, he coached at Purdue.
I was trying to look it up, but yeah, you can look it up and figure it out from there.
No, he coached at
Good
Purdue.
Win from
Joe.
Purdue. This was. Oh, did he really?
Yeah, that's terrible. That's
I don't know my Purdue history.
We are so bad. That is terrible.
Me and Joe get a pass. Craig, I mean, you easily probably graduated when Piggy Lambert was at Purdue. So
my brother in Christ, I didn't graduate for like another at least probably 50 to 60 years from that. Joe, I think you need to kick off and kick back on to get the fuzziness gone from your video there. But yeah, no, very, very impressive by Matt Painter. Obviously, we all know he's one of the best coaches in the country and just continues to check off wins and check off accomplishments along the way.
Yeah, no question about it. Braden Smith, man, when you talk about those, those records that he's continuing to show, like Magic Johnson played in the Big Ten. Like you talk about a lot of players, certainly a lot of players and a lot of all-time great players that have ever played the game of basketball. So, that is not just good company to be in, but great company to start being at the top of that list. And at the end of the game, they really found their groove. I mean, to start the game, it felt very sloppy. I saw our good buddy Casey Bartley kind of saying the same thing. Like it felt like a defensive struggle, and that was something I wanted to talk to you and Joe about. Like, was it really good defense or just sloppy basketball that contributed to like the low scoring in the first half? Maybe a little bit of both, but then Purdue really found their groove in the second half. Obviously, Fletcher Loyer was on fire throughout the entire game, but then once Braden Smith found his rhythm, and I think when Joe comes back and we get to some X's and O's with him, they certainly were running some sets that I thought were fortuitous, but ultimately he just started knocking down threes. So there was just a lot of good things to take from this game, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I think so, certainly. And like I kind of alluded to, I think it really was just a matter of Braden getting off to a slow start. Like he came out and didn't hit anything for a long time. He hit that one really deep late shot clock three. Outside of that, in the first half, he really wasn't doing anything from a scoring standpoint. And if Braden's just in his groove from the jump, in terms of not even a great scoring game, just an average scoring game, then this game's never really in question. And I know you alluded to Casey there. Casey and I were chatting offline while this game was going on. Good friend of mine and good friend of the show. And he said something probably about the same time he sent that tweet out. And I said, Purdue's going to win by 20. Like as soon as Braden gets going, this game's going to get out of hand because Purdue was doing everything else right. The shots just weren't falling for Braden early on.
Yeah. Well, and it's important, right? Joe and I talked about this a few post-game shows ago, but to get off to a quick start here with the schedule here in the first half of the Big Ten schedule for Purdue here in 2025, like you have an opportunity here to get yourself ahead. So when, the grind of the Big Ten really starts to hit and, Penn State and Northwestern were in a barn burner tonight. And, I know Oregon and, Illinois are playing. So we're going to start really getting into the thick of it. And Purdue, whether they're ready or not from a Matt Painter standpoint of understanding what lineups he want to use, and maybe he found something and we'll talk about that. But getting those wins now while you're still trying to figure out who you are from an identity standpoint is important. And to win this convincingly in a place in Minnesota at the Barn that's typically not an easy place to win, no matter what your record or talent of team you have, and Purdue one-handedly. So seems like Joe's got his internet issues good here, knock on wood. And so, Joe, I guess you could jump back in here into the conversation.
Yeah, so hopefully it holds out. Well, let me know if it doesn't. But yeah, very good win for Purdue. You take every road win we've talked about for the past couple post-game shows, dating back to the Auburn one of like, this is a stretch that Purdue has to take advantage of. They are very front-loaded in terms of their, I'm going to say easier opponents. Obviously, no game is really that easy in the Big Ten this year, but opponents that probably aren't going to make the tournament or more bubbly type, got to take advantage, and they did that. And you saw Caleb Furst play his best game since, that might have been his best game since Duke his sophomore year, in which he basically single-handedly won that game with his defense there. I liked the lineup switch. It felt very inevitable in terms of just something kind of having to switch. You see Heidi knock one down, which was good. You see Colvin get to a mid-range pull-up, which was good to see on those types of fronts. But just overall, very good to see Purdue be able to lock in. When you get the big three going like they were today, they're going to win a lot of games. You just need decent defense if the big three are going to be going like that. And I think the second half specifically, they got more of that.
Well, we're going to put Greg in the mute jar penalty box. But Joe, is with where you're going with this, I think we have to address kind of the elephant in the room, right? There was a lineup change tonight, and Greg, I don't know if you actually watched the whole preview show or not. Neither Joe or I said there was going to be a lineup change. We just kind of mentioned like we could see it happening. And then if that happens, like if you move Caleb into the starting lineup, then you can talk about moving CJ into the starting lineup because of what you have on the back end defensively. So there was a chance I mentioned that might be able to happen. I did not have it in my crystal ball that was going to 100% happen, but it didn't shock me. And I think we need to address maybe some of the things we saw from the jump before we get into individual player stats. But you look at total team rebounds today, Purdue wins the rebounding margin. Now, Minnesota is not a great rebounding team, but that's been a question all along for this Purdue team. Purdue's plus in total rebounds, Purdue is plus in offensive rebounds. Paint defense was a lot better when Caleb was in the game. As soon as you saw Caleb go out, paint defense was a struggle multiple times tonight. But when Caleb was in the game alongside TKR, certainly paint defense, rim defense was a lot better. And while it wasn't a great scoring game for CJ in that starting lineup, he gets 5 rebounds. He has 0 turnovers. And multiple times tonight, you saw where if Braden didn't get the ball or wasn't a quick outlet, they quick outletted to CJ, and CJ came up the court just as confidently as Braden with that ball. And you just had that secondary ball handler. And I don't know how to exactly describe it. Maybe Joe can talk about it a little bit more, but it just, with that secondary ball handler, whether it was Lance last year or CJ this year, it just feels like the offense moves better. Even if that person isn't really doing a lot from a scoring standpoint, it just felt like everything was freer and moved easier with that secondary ball handler in there.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think I disagree with the general overall statement. I think a lot of it this game was just that Purdue Braden Smith could get to what he wanted against this Minnesota defense. And I think it didn't matter too much who was out there for this game specifically, but I agree with the overarching theme of like, there's going to be plenty of games that Purdue absolutely needs that secondary ball handler. And CJ Cox is the guy that provides it while giving a outside scoring punch, while also still being, an overall probably plus defender. And that's why you're starting to see him get more and more minutes rashed up. And now you start seeing him, you get this start. Like, I think it was a good decision to start him. I was like you, like, I didn't expect it to happen. Maybe this game, it just felt like with the trajectory Colvin and Heidi were on, that it's like at some point it probably happens. But yeah, I think it was a good switch overall. I think I'm happier about the first one. Like, I think that one to me felt like it had to happen. And then if Cox came in, I think I would have been like, I was cool with it. But I just, it is unfortunate. Like the TKR at the 5 thing can work. I think where I stand, and I said this, I think last post game, or maybe it was the preview show, I want it to be something that they can go to and not something that they have to rely on. If it's something that they can go to, it becomes a counter. It becomes let's throw this at them for 4 minutes and see how the defense adjusts. And maybe, hopefully we get by enough defensively on our own. When it's what you have, it's, well, this doesn't work. Now what happens? Now you're starting to see Furst emerge more and more. He provides a little bit more of that honestly, just overall defense. This defense was fantastic today. I know Garcia ends up with 20, 8 of those were closer to garbage time minutes, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. So I really like it as something that they can go to and not something that they have to rely on.
Right. And, when you talk about them trying to figure out how they're going to make up for, you saw the graphic if you watch the television broadcast where they said they were first in the country in rebounding, with Zach Edey, obviously over the last 4 years, they're probably number 1 in the country. And now they're 237th. So a precipitous drop off when you lose the national player of the year, but that even with just losing Zach, that's a big drop off. And, obviously they've taken some hits with injuries to start this year with their big man depth, but trying to figure out exactly how they want to, have the 4 and 5 spot, which we've talked ad nauseum about here on this program. So, to see Furst be able to get in there and get active and really make an impact and a difference where you can say, okay, this lineup makes sense and really can help out, with some of the things they struggle with, we'll see how it continues. Obviously, there's better teams to be played against here in the Big Ten, but I think a great starting point for 2025.
Yeah, and that's all you can kind of ask for. That's all you can hope for is you get knocked down win number one. Now you stare down a very tough Northwestern team at home that has potential to give Purdue problems, but that's at home. You knock down that one, and you're able to put the December behind you quickly if things keep going as they did today. Obviously, that's easier said than done.
Derek Mulligan here in the chat adds in, Furst has to get 20 minutes a game. He makes winning plays. He's always been a winner, but he needs 20 minutes to showcase that. That's an interesting point, when you talk about, guys that are grinders, can they really make the impact that you're trying to find if they're not getting the kind of minutes that you need, almost like a running back in football having to get 25 carries before they really start to, make an impact on that war of attrition. And it certainly felt like the Boilers were winning that war of attrition as the second half, really started to wind to a close. So appreciate everybody tuning in here to the Boilers in the Stands post-game show. Please hit that like button while you're hanging out. We're going to get into a lot of different things. Obviously, want to look at probably the minutes spreadsheet that we get into every game, because this one certainly I think is going to be unique in and of itself. And I've got some X's and O's with Joe that I want to challenge him on the dry erase board here in a little bit. So I don't know where you guys want to take this next. Obviously, I threw out a couple suggestions, but if you have anything else in mind, certainly I'm all ears.
I'm good just kind of getting into it if you're good with that, Kraig.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the minutes, and how it's spread out, because obviously the big wrinkle in this game was, the lineup change for Matt Painter, and who starts isn't always the most important factor for a lineup. It's about how the minutes are actually spread out throughout the game. And Joe always does kind of a good job of illustrating that here with this graphic. So why don't you pull it up, Joe, and then explain kind of what you see in it.
Yeah, so for anybody that hasn't watched before, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe. We are live for every single Purdue post game. But this chart right here, so color box means that player was on the floor for the majority of that minute. Obviously, I don't track all the individual seconds, so there's tiny things off. The corresponding positions are down low, and you can just kind of see the flow of like, okay, how did the rotations happen? Different positionings, things like that. Down at the bottom, Purdue margin is what that lineup was, plus minus. So that first 6 minutes, the starting lineup was a +2. It was kind of a weird one. You get TKR in foul trouble, especially early in that second half where he kind of has to resort to some different things. This feels like closer to what I would expect going forward of if this starting five stays, which I guess we do have to see if that happens, where it is first at getting the most of the big spots or most of the big minutes. You get Burgess sprinkled in, and then you get some TKR minutes sprinkled in as well at the 5. Braden and Loyer are going to play a lot, and then it's just kind of the combination of Cox, Colvin, Heidi, and Harris to a degree, right? Where they play 21, 16, 14, and 7 this game respectively, and they're just going to kind of rotate in and out. And I would expect, especially the first half, that to be pretty set of like starter plays these minutes, bench comes in, plays these, and then the second half feels like just kind of whoever has the hot hands per se, whether that be offensively or defensively, is just going to be the one that gets more of the minutes closing down the stretch. That's two this show, Bragg.
Damn it. I'm trying to be respectful, and this is what I get for being respectful, is just more mute buttons in the jar. And as somebody said, in our I highlighted it, but Derek Mulligan said Greg is the all-time record holder for mutes, and no one will ever get close to touching that record. It's true. I am the Wilt Chamberlain of muting myself on our fine program here on Boilers in the Stands. But Chris R does drop $1.99 super chat here into the show. And Kraig, I'll set you up here, but thoughts on the offense defensive substitutions in the second half for Matt Painter?
Yeah, man, I thought there was a few. There was a stretch with Burgess and Heidi at the 4-5 where they went to it for sure. There was a little other stretch. I forget the exact ones, but I don't think it was like massive all the time. But I thought specifically with getting TKR into foul trouble early in the second half, I thought he did a good job of just being able to, one, trust TKR with foul trouble, and then two, just like fill in the spots that they need. Braden Loyer going to eat up a lot of minutes. It doesn't make it too tough, but no, I don't know. I don't think it was like otherworldly, but I thought it was solid from Painter.
Yeah, and I thought you were going to me with that, Greg. I guess I didn't even notice it that much, to be honest, in terms of exactly when they happened, and maybe it wasn't just super late game. So I usually notice that when it's like in the last minute and a half type of thing. But I was really surprised when I went and looked at plus minus on this game, because I think Burgeson's up -9, and like I thought he played fine. There was a couple of fouls. He's still swinging down too much. Like he's getting close. Like there was like 2 fouls today where he walls up, and then the last second he brings his hands down just a little bit. And it's like, dude, if you just stay walled up, they're not scoring on you. Like you had them stopped. But he's just kind of slowly, incrementally doing things better and just looking like he's more in the flow. So I was actually really shocked that he was -9 from that regard today.
Yeah, well, as we've pointed out many times here on the show, that sometimes the plus minus, while it is, you can use it in certain ways, it doesn't always tell the full picture of the story of how players are doing, but isn't something you just completely disregard here. We had somebody mention, in the comments, and I highlighted it just to make sure, Paul Burkott saying need to find some rest for Braden Smith. Because as you see here in this chart, he plays every minute of this game. And, I felt like that during the non-conference play, like, hey, if he can play 40 minutes a game all season and he's able to play at the level that he is, which is a fantastic level, I'm all for it. But in the back of my head, as you watch this game, I mean, seriously, he plays every minute of this game. They were up by like 20 at the end. How did he not get out of the game with 3.5 minutes left? I know that they were somewhat hovering around 12.
They hit enough threes to make it like
for Painter to not call off the dogs. But at the same time, like it is going to start adding up at the end of the year. Then the question is, okay, the minutes add up, but will it have an effect on Braden's play?
Well, I mean, I think one of the interesting things about starting CJ alongside him then is like, I mean, CJ was coming in for backup point guard minutes at one point, and then he started to play CJ next to Braden a little bit more as CJ kind of demanded more time. And now that you're starting CJ with him, like you can still let CJ back up Braden in those backup point guard minutes, but like, how are you going to work that rotation specifically? And then just depending on game flow and who's hot and who's not, like, how do you make that work specifically through a game to get that? I thought in this game, it was just the fact that Braden started really, really slow. And that lead was kind of just hovering around that 5 to 6 point mark for too long. So he felt like he had to keep him in there. And then when it finally broke loose, Braden was the one breaking it loose, right? So, like, you're not going to give him a rest when he's the one that's making it break loose in that moment.
Yep.
My take on it is like Braden is playing 40 minutes every game. He did sit for like 20 seconds technically this game. Just the way that I track it, it didn't quite work out. There's also, I think, more context to it than just simply Braden played 40 minutes. Was this a super physical game? No. Was this a super up-tempo game? No. Like, this is a game especially. And now maybe the last couple minutes you could argue, hey, should you take him out? That one's fair. But, like, if this was an 8-point game, this is a game especially is one where it's just like, Braden's fine. And Braden's going to play 40 minutes every game. Like, I don't know if it's worth even talking about ever a backup ball handler, because it's like, Braden's going to play. The only time that I think Braden will sub is if there is like one of those ones where it's a foul gets called with 8:20 left in the first half. And so you can sub him out for a minute and a half, and then you get the media timeout, kind of like NBA does with like their superstars, right? And that's kind of, I think, come down to the college level as well. Maybe it's just me. I want Braden playing 40 minutes, especially in close games. This, like I said, I'll give the caveat of like, yeah, maybe he should have came out for the last 2 or 3. This team is far worse with Braden off the floor.
I think it comes down to the physicality of it, right? And you know, when we monitored how many minutes Zach Edey would play, you know, every year for the last few years and be worried about the wear and tear. Well, he's taken a beating. Like, you know, he's being pulverized by 3 guys in the lane, and where Braden, like you said today, wasn't necessarily it can get physical on the perimeter, no doubt. You know, a team like Northwestern is going to play you much more physically. And so those games might come to pass, and obviously foul trouble will be an indicator as well. But at the same time, it's just a different type of wear and tear, and it's more about your endurance, your stamina, how much you're, you know, as opposed to how much of a beating you're taking when you're playing at the guard position. So, you know, I'm inclined to agree. And I think tonight was kind of an indicator of that. Like, if there was anything about fatigue, well, it certainly didn't feel like it, because as the game went on, he got better, you know, and with 10 minutes to go, he was on fire, you know, and so that was, it was a lot of fun to watch that. And, you know, I just think he's that type of player.
And this isn't Braden Smith trying to handle the ball against Penn State, or Braden Smith trying to handle the ball against Ole Miss or against Texas A&M, right? Like, he's not getting beat up and not facing the same type of physicality and constant pressure in those games. So there was no point in this game where I was like, oh, Braden looks like he's getting a little tired, right? Like, it seemed like he could handle the minutes today for sure. Now, if you want to talk about like next game and that sort of thing, fine. But we've got 3 days off in between. These are young college kids. He'll be fine, Greg.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm inclined to agree, but I think it's worthy of asking, especially when a guy plays 40 minutes, right? And, you know, I see Time Daly saying fatigue, they only had 5 games in December. I'm not necessarily saying for tonight, but it's about, is there any kind of theory that makes sense for saving minutes for down the road? Again, mileage, you know, it's like mileage on a car. But again, I understand that, you know, he's a young buck, he can handle it, but I do think that it is, you know, worth discussion at the very least. We have had a flood of super chats come in here in the last few minutes. So I you know, on a lot of shows I do with Bears, sometimes we save them for the end, but we can throw some in here now that are, you know, some of the more basketball thoughts, and we'll get to some more of the fun ones at the end. We appreciate everyone sending in these super chats. They certainly help support. So it's certainly a way that you can help support what we do here on the show, and it's greatly appreciated. Brian Bennett, the $4.99 super chat says, is there a player who enjoys the game more than Fletch? It's fun watching him have fun. You know, he certainly has a competitive edge that I think we all can, get behind and relate to. He is definitely, he's always engaged. There's no question about that, Brian.
Yeah, and it was I mean, obviously there's the bank in heave at the end that was just like, oh, of course that's going in. But like in the first half, Loyer quietly kept Purdue in the lead. It was not a lot of shots, but it was every time was just, I mean, he only missed 2 shots the whole game, but like there was just a couple random shots where it's just like, oh, that kind of stemmed the tide just a bit. And so very good game from Fletch. And I love watching him. He is very fun just to watch on the floor.
And I don't think he missed a shot till like 5 minutes to go in the second half, because I remember putting some tweet out about dude perfect, no dude Loyer about with like 5 minutes to go in the second half. 24 points on 10 shots. I don't know, Joe, that seems like a fairly decent true shooting percentage or effective field goal percentage. Either one seems good. But yeah, no, he 100% kept Purdue in the lead in that first half, because it just shooting wise, Braden was doing a lot of other stuff good, but shooting wise, it just was not there, right, for Braden in that first half.
Yeah, but Fletcher Loyer has been consistent all year, and he showed that same, you know, consistency. He's just been red hot all season long, and so just makes life a lot easier on the offensive end when he's knocking down shots like that. And man, is he perfected when he goes to the rim, that little floater layup, like it's automatic, and it's not an easy, the degree of difficulty on these floaters, but he makes it look so easy that you feel like, it's a gimme, but it takes a lot of touch and timing when you're going full speed at the hoop. And depending on who's trying to block the shot, for him to be able to do that as consistently as he does, it's kind of a rare trait for, a shooting guard to have.
And he's like, credit to Loyer, and it still has to hold, right? A lot of season left, 17 games in the regular season. He's up to 48% on twos. Last year he was 39%, right? The biggest knock was he couldn't do anything inside the paint or inside the arc last year. Is it elite level? Absolutely not. But like, it is very good given his play style and just his build in that 48% on twos, it can be a bailout. You'd rather him shoot a three, but like, he can be a guy that can get downhill and, like you said, get to that floater. And it adds that element that, like, that's what makes Loyer the true third option over somebody else. Is like, he can be a guy that can get downhill and like be like a 2.5 level score. I don't know if he always gets all the way to the rim, but gets that little floater. And it makes defenses have to hesitate just a second longer.
No question about it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, hit that like button. I guess now, while we're still sticking to the offensive talk, is when I guess I could challenge you to the X's and O's here, Joe, with the board. Because I really enjoyed, we talked so much about the Chicago action. But I think, tonight, a lot of it was, where Braden would come rolling around the perimeter. And there was just so many layers off of that play that worked tonight, whether it was, the drop off to Kaufman-Renn, or the skip pass to the corner to Fletch, or the ball reversal. I think my favorite play of the game was with like 10 or 11 minutes left in the second half, where they kind of faked a handoff and the trailer came past, and then Braden pops back, curls around, and they drop him off for a wide open layup. And it just felt like there was so many layers to that action that they were running. And I was just, curious if you had any insight to just like how many options they have at their disposal, because then the other option was, if they go under, Braden Smith just pulling up and knocking down. And he did that about 3 or 4 times to finish the game. So, I just really enjoyed how, Purdue just kept dialing it up because Minnesota didn't really have any answers for it.
Yeah. So we can go to it for a sec. Cause I'm going to start with just the basic defensive coverage that Minnesota is running. They're in a high hedge. And now, right, Purdue fans are probably like, high hedge, that's really scary. This is the game, like one of the games where this whole season where I've been referencing, like, hey, not every team can hedge like Penn State does. The unfortunate part for Purdue is there's only a handful of teams that can do what, like, similar to Penn State. They were Texas A&M, Maryland to a degree, like those that Purdue played those teams in pretty close order that could do it. So you have the high hedge here for Minnesota. And then I'll start with this, and then I'll go to more of the layer thing that you were talking about, Braggs. So honestly, oftentimes what they would do, so they have, you have this initial screen right here, and then so this happens, you have the high hedge here trying to push him out. His defender, Braden Smith's defender, is going to be kind of trailing, right? So now you have it like this. A lot of times what they do is they just immediately flip back. And why they do that is this big's here. You have a guard here, right? And then right here. So now when this screen happens right here, as they reverse, come back, now this big is out of position. They're a defense that doesn't love to send a lot of help. They want to stay true in the corners and then maybe squeeze like one guy over to help as a low man. It just gives them a ton of options and even when that wasn't happening, right? Say it's just a straight up ball screen. You have the high hedge here. As this happens, then they did more like this. As this happens, that's where that short roll opens up. As this big gets dragged out, this big is chasing, that opens up that pocket pass. And now this is where TKR has all of that area to just operate. So as I erase that for a second, and I don't have my eraser on me, what Braggs was talking about is, and I don't know if I remember the exact specific play that he's talking about, but the one that very similar that I remember is, gotta make sure the angle's all good. There we go. TKR has the ball, and I believe it was Loyer here. You had Cox here, and I think you had like Furst here. So Braden inbounds it here, and then he's going to curl through, right? And you do this a lot of times, knowing that, hey, Braden's going to either get the ball or like cut up like this. It started like this. So now you have CJ. He's coming off of this. TKR has the ball right here. CJ runs off of TKR here, but it's a fake handoff. So TKR now keeps it this big right here already. He's having to anticipate. He's a step out of position. As that's happening, Braden's now following. He gets this down screen. And so now it's looking like this. So you have CJ like over here with his guy. You have Loyer here with his guy. The big sort of already out of position here. First down screen, and you have Braden curling around. CJ might cut through. Like he might even do this too to kind of open up this space. And so now, again, a lot of movement. So this defender, this defender can't help at all. He's occupied. This defender right here guarding Furst, he's occupied because he has to worry about this Braden potential curl. This defender's occupied because now he has to worry about Braden. And it's either Braden curling and getting downhill, which I think he got to the rim all the way once, where it's just like a wide open layup. Or that's another example where the big hedges out, TKR short rolls, bucket from there. Just a very good job, I think, they do such a good job of when they're able to run their offense like that, of occupying defenders. And so what I mean by that is that, right, defenses have their rules, they have their principles, they have their things that they want to do. If you're occupying them with off-ball movement, it becomes harder for them to have to be able to get into the right spots. It puts them a step behind, and that's where Purdue is just going to take advantage.
And I think interesting to that point, just in terms of the specific lineup that you talked there, right, is to me, who else is on the floor around Braden? Because you're worried about that action more depending on who else is on the floor with him, right? Specifically with CJ in that spot, right? And that handoff, you're worried about him potentially getting downhill or pulling up from an 18-footer because the scout report says he can shoot off the bounce. So, like, you're worried more about that action. And one of the other things we've just seen a little bit in the last few games, Joe, is you've seen a few times where they've put Braden off ball with CJ at the point and Braden running some off ball action. And you saw early in the season just a little bit with Jakari too, but they can kind of cheat off Jakari as the season went on, you know? So it's interesting to me that they're finding those little wrinkles. It's only maybe 3 plays that you see Braden go off ball, but there may come a time where that needs to happen in certain situations, depending on how they're defending Braden. So it's just interesting going forward, but always love the chalkboard, the whiteboard, not the chalkboard.
Dry erase board.
You probably never had a chalkboard in a classroom, Joe. So
I did early on. They were annoying.
I think the other thing that I noticed too was them trying to draw some action for, Cam Heidi to get, a look inside the paint. And it didn't work. They tried to have him cut to the hoop and feed it into him, and he kind of got stonewalled. But I guess he got blocked. But I liked the idea just from the standpoint of, like, you've got to try to find a way to get Miles and Cam involved in different ways and just kind of trailing around the perimeter, right? And so if you got him cutting and he gets the right leverage to the hoop, that time he got stonewalled. But if you're executing on a little faster scale, maybe that's going to open up some easier buckets for those guys.
Well, and when he hit his 3, that was off of a pin down set for him, right? They ran a little pin down action where he came up top and he hits that 3 where it kind of rattles in or whatnot. So it was good. Joe mentioned, and like from the chat in the last post game we did, that like not last year, but the year before, everybody was like, why aren't they just playing a 2-man game for Braden and Zach? Like, why can't Purdue just go pick and roll? And then Purdue switches to like the heaviest pick and roll team in the country. And now this year, when it's getting shut down, sometimes everybody's like, why aren't we running our sets anymore? So it's a fine line. And tonight there was a moment where you were maybe like, man, we need to run some actual sets and not just do this 2-man game because Braden wasn't hitting shots, And then in the second half, that's all it was, right? It was just Braden go into that 2-man game, and Braden was hitting his shots, and all of a sudden it looked like we were the best offense in the country again.
No question about it. Appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, like I said, hit the like button. I see Casey is in the chat hanging out. I think it goes without saying, Casey, if you ever want to jump on and give your thoughts, the door is always open to you here. Hell, I'm sure if you want to just take my spot, you could probably make for a better show, because I'm not going to sit here and talk about any post-ups from Braden Smith tonight because he didn't have any. But I digress. Appreciate everybody as always. Get to enjoy a nice Purdue victory against Minnesota. I know everybody's watching the Fighting Illini taking on Oregon. You got a 22 versus 9 matchup here. Illinois leads 37-27, still with 4 minutes in the first half to go. So, looks like Illinois got out to a hot start, but we'll see what happens here as the Ducks are down 10. So appreciate everybody. Big Ten basketball is really starting to pick up steam. I know Northwestern sounds like the refs might have screwed over Northwestern a bit at the end of the Penn State game. I saw some people kind of losing their minds about that. I didn't get an opportunity to see it, so I don't know the context behind it. I just saw John Rothstein's post about it.
That was hilarious. That was when I was like, oh yeah, Big Ten basketball's back, because that was right around the time that the Loyer 3, where like they called it a 2, happened. And I think there's even something that happened in the IU Rutgers game. And it was all 3 live Big Ten games, like at the same time. Everybody was complaining about refs. And it was like, oh yeah, Big Ten basketball is back. Like,
we are back.
Not even that they were wrong. Northwestern got absolutely screwed out of the potential game tire. That Loyer 3, obviously, and I don't actually know the IU thing that was going on, but yeah, it made me laugh just sitting there being like, oh, my entire Twitter feed is yelling at Big Ten refs, but also like, I understand.
Indiana takes down Rutgers 84-74. So Indiana gets
without Dylan Harper. There's a strong caveat there. Without arguably the best player in the entire country. So
yeah,
there's
he
that.
looks he looks good. That's for damn sure.
Are we gonna get to player stats? We're like 43 minutes into the show.
Yes, sir. Whatever you need, whatever you want. 100%. Let's get into it. Who do you want to talk about?
I think first and foremost in this game specifically, like, we've got to talk about Fletcher Loyer. I know we've already mentioned it, but 8 of 10 from the field. What does he finish? 4 of 6 from 3, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 3 assists on the night. Just a really, really impressive performance from Fletcher all around. And then Braden obviously caught fire in the second half. If we would have looked at these numbers at the end of the first half, wouldn't look near as good, but finishes 7 of 17 on the night, almost 50% from 3 at 5 of 11, 1 of 2 from the free throw line. Also finishes with 6 rebounds and 10 assists. Until he went on that scoring run, I didn't really know that he was close to a triple-double. And I think he had 6 rebounds with maybe 7 minutes or so left in the game. And I thought, wouldn't it be the weirdest thing if he finally gets his triple-double in a game where, like, he just wasn't putting the ball in the basket at all in the first half, and then everything kind of came together in the second? Kaufman-Renn, I think we got to talk about him too, right? 8 of 14 from the field, finishes the night with 17 points. Didn't really score in the last 10 minutes of the game. Kind of was a weird game for him, right? Because he had some foul trouble. All of his points kind of came in spurts. Joe and I in the preview show both thought this could be a really big TKR game. Probably could have been if he just stayed on the court a little bit longer in the first half and early in the second half, but definitely got his points in spurts. But I think maybe the most surprising stat line of the night that we have to talk about is Caleb Furst, right? Because he gets his first start of the year. He's kind of been much maligned, and not to steal Joe's thunder, but he likes to say that Caleb doesn't necessarily make a lot of mistakes, but that his mistakes are very loud when he makes them. Greg pulled his stat line down, so I can't read it to you. I don't have it memorized. I'm not that good, Greg. If you could, there we go.
Yes, sir.
But gets his very first start of the game, and by far and away, from like a statistical standpoint, scoring and everything else, his best game of the year, right? 11 points, 3 of 5 from the field, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds. Just a really, really good game from him. Only finishes +9 on the night, but I think that was because he was out there for so many minutes when TKR did get in foul trouble and have to go to the bench, and kind of had to anchor the team down low for large stretches when they maybe didn't have their best lineup out there. But I thought Caleb was really impressive. There was only maybe one play tonight where I didn't think he like held the ball and went strong, which is maybe the thing that irks Purdue fans the most. I think it's always also just really important when he's down there, he can be the one kind of schlepping underneath on the boards. And when he does go up and gets fouled, he's a much better free throw shooter off of those offensive rebounds when he gets fouled than what TKR is. So that makes our free throw percentage better. And probably more important than the stat line, just such a good defender. Like, I thought he did excellent tonight as a defender all the way around. I don't know what you thought, Joe.
Yeah, that was where I was going to start, was his defense. Like, and I said it off the top. I know Garcia ends with 20 in the game, but you could tell, right? As soon as Heidi was on him, Minnesota was going at him. And that's not even a knock per se on Heidi, because it's just more of a size difference type thing, right? Where Garcia would then have the size advantage. I'm very like, especially after this game, Furst is going to stay starting. I was curious if this was going to be more of a one-time type thing, just given like felt very much like it could just be a personnel type start, and you have to put him on Garcia because he's the only one on this roster that had any chance of really staying out on the perimeter, but also not giving up a ton of size on the interior. And he just worked hard and he played hard. And like, I think I tweeted it after the last game. It's just like, hey, if Furst can kind of do this, I don't really care what his stat line is. Like, that's a really good role player for where Purdue is at right now. Like, they need that from him. Obviously, he gets some of the points to go today. I also agree with this. City Machieski says, feels like Furst never gets a friendly bounce. I was happy to see some actually fall tonight. Like, he had the one like floater layup where it like hit 3 parts inside of the rim. And I understand that he's just not a good finisher also on the interior, but like, it's like, how does that not go in? And then it pops out, and then it's just, that's where the loud comment comes in of just like, man, that's a really noticeable miss, because how did that not go in? But no, Furst was fantastic tonight. Like, it's tough to say this when Loyer has 24, Smith has a 20, 10 and 6 game, and TKR goes 8 of 14, but like, Furst maybe was the most important player on the floor.
Well, he's most important because you're looking for a contributor outside of those 3 who bring it every single game. And so we'll just start building out from there. Okay, 1. There's 1 guy that's helping the big 3. Now we need 2, and then, hey, don't get greedy now, but we can have 3 or 4 if you guys don't mind, and so, but trying to find those lineups and those rotations and how many minutes guys are getting per game is going to play a big part in that. I mean, it's only so many minutes to go around, but CJ Cox, like you said, Kraig, I saw you tweet it like, okay, if you're going to have him start, let's run some action for him, and so that didn't necessarily happen very many times tonight, but you also have to earn those moments, right? There was a few times where he did take it to the rim and, wasn't able to really make anything look very clean. So, you'll get more action for you, the more you have an opportunity to produce and execute, what they're trying to do.
Yeah. You know what happened when he took it to the rim, Greg? Caleb Furst got an offensive rebound and put it in. So putting pressure on the rim itself, like just being able to put pressure on the rim is important.
Yeah, no question about it. My favorite bucket for Caleb tonight was the lucky one, where they saved the pass out of bounds. Braden catches it. Then they kick it all the way to the other side. Miles goes up for 3 and it rims out. And there's Caleb. Boop. Just tipped it right in, and Caleb had a loud scream after that. I think he was proud of how much he was fighting underneath. Cause if you're just watching the ball, on a play like that, you're not seeing the effort that's going on underneath the rim to stay in position for that moment. So, while you can say, lucky bounce, lucky they didn't turn the ball over there, but at the same time, Caleb Furst's effort is the reason that finishes with 2 points instead of a turnover.
Yeah, no, it was a good play. It was just, I feel like epitomized a little bit of that. Was that second half, right? I don't want to be lying and say,
Yeah,
that was
second half.
Yeah, it just was another high energy play that it felt like Purdue needed, and they got in that second half, and that really helped break the game open. Obviously, Braden Smith becoming Steph helps a bit too.
And Jakari Harris knocks down a 3 in the corner, right?
Which was needed. Needed badly for him.
So, baby steps, man. They're freshmen, and they're only going to get so many. These guys are only going to get so many opportunities. I mean, Burgess, you continue to see the promise in him, even if the results don't show up on the stat sheet. So, the little amount of opportunities that, Cox and Burgess and Harris are going to get, and you build up from there. It's certainly not going to be easy to build up from there in Big Ten play, but, they'll have their opportunities.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Anybody else got big takes, or we want to do some game balls and then go to the starred comments?
Do we need? Well, I guess we would talk about them maybe in the star comments. I feel like we have to mention a little more Colvin and Heidi. Like, I feel like we talked about the starters replacing them, but we didn't talk about Colvin and Heidi that much.
Sure. Go for it. Fire away.
I say that not having like a ton to contribute. I do not expect them to keep shooting this bad. Colvin is down to 32% from 3 on the year. Wow. I do not expect that to hold. It was very good to see Colvin get to the mid-range pull-up. I think that, if we're talking about attacking off the bounce and attacking closeouts, I honestly trust that more than him trying to get to the rim and just getting to the mid-range pull-up. Same thing with I would say that applies to Cox too, where it's in theory it's a lower percentage shot, but it just feels like it's going to work a lot more. So it was good to see that. It was good to see Colvin. I still thought he was solid defensively. Nothing bluntly bad. And that's, again, a good thing to continue to harp. I liked Heidi's energy. I thought he had much more energy in this game, even if he only knocks down a 3. I don't it's tough because, you can say, hey, they're still doing some other things well, but it's kind of just this glaring sun of they are not making threes.
Yeah. And I thought they both looked good. I thought it was a little bit easier for Miles to look good, not shooting well in this game than it was for Cam, because Miles got to guard some of Minnesota's perimeter players who are not great shooters and looked like he did a really nice defensive job. Whereas Cam was at a extreme physical disadvantage every time he came into the game, shooting over, one of the best buckets in the Big Ten, who's 6'11" and 4 inches taller or 3 inches taller, whatever you want to believe, than Cam out there. So thought it was obviously a little bit more of a struggle just because Cam had to guard a guy who's probably going to be they're not going to be good enough for him to be first team. So second or third team all Big Ten at the end of the year. But yeah, no glaring things. Obviously, Cam gets 6 rebounds today, which is big. From that standpoint, he has to contribute from a rebounding standpoint. He had 3 assists. I did not catch that in real time. I wonder if that's a career high for him. So, yeah, certainly he's contributed still, even if Garcia kind of took it to him when he was out there.
Heidi, his first game of his career, he had 2 assists, and he has not had 2 since. So, yeah, it is a career high.
Career high.
Joe, you did that really fast.
Thanks.
Something tells me a couple of those he did. I mean, that was crazy. Something tells me a couple of those had to have been an extra pass to Fletcher Loyer in the corner there a couple times when they were skipping it around the perimeter. Yeah. But yeah, just looking this over, I know somebody asked how many turnovers did Purdue have on the night? 3 turnovers, man. They've had a few games this year where they've kept it under 5. That's pretty impressive. I know Braden Smith finished the night with 40 minutes of play and 0 turnovers.
That's a good. We could have just started with that and been like, hey, yeah, that's a Purdue win. Like it's going to be a win
Yeah.
way more often than not.
Well, I mean, your main ball handlers tonight are Braden Smith, obviously by far and away from a usage standpoint, and then CJ Cox and Fletcher Loyer. And between all three of those, they have 0 turnovers. So that's a good job of taking care of the ball, even if it is a Minnesota team that doesn't turn a ton of people over. So
Matt Painter's happy with that kind of a stat, no doubt about it. All right, let's get into some of the highlighted comments. Derek Mulligan was asking, is this the real Casey Bartley in the chat? He needs to know. Casey did confirm he is real. He just didn't travel to Minnesota for the game. Probably smart. It's a pretty rough. Like the Big Ten drives aren't terrible. Different ways, especially if you live where I live here in Northwest Indiana. I'm like really centralized, but Minnesota is a trek. That is a trek. So I don't blame anybody for.
Well, he's living in Florida now too.
So that's even more of a trek for him if he drives 100%.
Yeah. He's like coming back and staying for like stretches of a few weeks in Indiana at times and covering Purdue, but his home is now in Florida. So that Minnesota trek was going to be a big trek for him.
Okay. Well, we appreciate Casey tuning in. And once again, Casey, please jump on the show anytime you'd like and bring your thoughts to the table anytime you ever want to. Door is always open. We had a few different conversations going on about Piggy, the coach for Purdue in the 60s. Jason also, he guessed false, Casey, $1.99 super chat. So sorry, Jason, you are wrong. That is the correct one. So let's get into some of this Piggy thoughts. Andy Buck, our lead research of Piggy Lambert here today, born on May 28th, 1888, if I'm reading that correctly, alma mater, Wabash, in 1911, career record, major schools, 29 years, with a 371 wins and 152 losses and a 709 winning percentage with Purdue, and then 37 and 152 with Purdue, 371 wins. I don't know what and then
you read numbers, Kraig?
No, I mean because it's all like jammed together. So I'm like, I just don't know what the heck I'm looking at. Conference champion 11 times. Piggy
and
he was a baseball coach too, right?
Well, you didn't even know who he was like 30 minutes ago. How do you know this? Did you Google it?
I had some quick research.
Okay. I need to apologize because literally my role on this show is to be the historian. Yeah, I'm supposed to know this stuff, and I was like, "Who's Piggy Lambert? Like, where did he coach?" I honestly just blanked it in the moment.
Oh,
so
you didn't
apologies.
know? I thought you were like just pulling one on me.
No, I wasn't messing around. I literally just blanked this. Again, I was not alive in 1911, but generally, like, I know most of the historical Purdue stuff, and I just totally blanked this. So this is on me, guys.
That's on you. That's on you.
I promise. I thought you just pulled one on me of like, oh yeah, Joe's not going to know who that is.
Casey Bartley adds here.
I promise to be better.
Well, no, Casey's now our historian since you failed us, and he's saying here in the chat, he was part of the second Hall of Fame class ever in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And yes, he coached baseball as well. Some other different thoughts here. Casey with a $4.99 super chat. Appreciate your support, my friend. True or false, Ward Lambert was nicknamed Piggy for being a ball hog at Wabash. Keep up the good work, boys. I don't know. Could be. Could be.
True.
Could be, or maybe he really likes bacon.
It seems too obscure not to be true, right? So, like, I feel like it's got to be true. Well, wait.
Interesting.
He gave us the answer.
Yes, $4.99 super chat. True. Pig was a ball hog. Piggy fun facts. Pioneered fast break ball, bigs that can handle, and was John Wooden's coach at Purdue. Second Hall of Fame class ever. These are serious details coming here from Casey Bartley. What up, Kraig? Look at this historian.
I'm bad.
he's Jordan timing you right now. Like
I know.
he's
I dropped
Jordan,
the ball.
he's Jordan, and you're LeBron. That's what's happening
Well,
right now.
I mean, clearly Casey's older than me, so
Yeah, and Casey said finishes up with Piggy and Kermit was a great Big Ten rivalry in the 60s. And now we have to wonder, was there somebody named Kermit in the 60s that me and Joe are not aware of? So I don't know.
let's get to some of the other chats.
Casey also adds that he will be back in Indiana for the rest of the season, he thinks. So we're excited for that. And maybe I'll make my way to Mackey Arena one of these days. And then to finish this off, a few more. Scott White added here in the chat. First of all, prayers to Jaden Ivey for a speedy recovery. What was it? A tip? What did he
broken
fibula?
Fibula.
Fibula, not a femur. That'd be pretty. Yeah,
not that.
Yeah,
broken fibula. Yeah, so not great. But yes, definitely.
But that's like, in all honesty, that's way better than a bunch of ACL tendon type damage or that type of stuff. Like, once that bone heals, it's going to be healed and fixed. And for a guy who plays at the pace and speed and quick twitch that he does, like, in a weird way, a broken leg is better than what some of the other injuries could have been for him. So, yeah, but speedy recovery, thoughts with Jaden and with his family, for sure. He was off to, by far and away, his best season in his career and was really having a breakout season.
Yep.
All right, a couple more Piggy thoughts to finish the show. David Dillman, only Purdue coach with a national championship. Piggy. Come on, guys.
I just feel worse and worse all the time now.
Bradley Economics. This is an interesting one, and this is probably why we should forget Piggy. In 1940, Purdue won the Big Ten, but lost to second place IU twice. So Piggy gave IU the NCAA invite. IU went on to win the NCAA title, and Bradley Economics says still haven't forgiven Piggy for that. Now,
All right.
That's some serious indictment there, but our head of research, Casey Bartley, might have to confirm those accusations.
I've heard that one. I'm pretty sure I've heard that one because that was a year too. Like, it was early in the NCAA championship where, like, it didn't mean what it means today. And I think it was you only played like 2 or 3 games.
Wasn't the NIT like the bigger tournament then anyway?
It might have been. I'm not sure on that.
I didn't
I've
think the
heard that
NCAA tournament became like the big tournament until later.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know specifically when that happened.
Honestly, I wish we could finish every one of our shows with Piggy facts. This has been great here. So we'll see, but we appreciate everyone's contributions here to the show. JB finishes it off saying 3,000 subscribers to Brags in the Stands channel and Boilers in the Stands, of course. Obviously, the heartbeat of what we do here at Brags in the Stands is I've shut down operation with everything else on the channel. But at the same time, we understand the majority of every single one of you that are subscribed to this channel are Boilers fans, and we appreciate all your support. And yes, we have crossed the 3,000 subscriber threshold and continue to try to climb that number up slowly but surely. But it is a testament to what these guys have been doing over the last couple of years, making this channel the consistent media powerhouse that is Purdue Boilermaker coverage. And I can't thank those guys enough for everything they do and contribute here to the program. And we appreciate all of you contributing to the program, and you can do that with all the super chats. Shout out to everybody that gave a super chat here tonight. Even just hitting the like button, as simple as that, or sharing the show along to your friends, are things that go a long way with supporting what we do here. And if you like the Boilers in the Stands merch, you see that Kraig and I are wearing, and I still have Joe's. Well, I have your hoodie, and it's been in my basement for 6 months now, and eventually you'll get it. But if you head over to Teespring, yes, that's right. From the Final Four. It's the last time I saw you guys' beautiful faces. But if you search Google and search Teespring Brags in the Stands, you'll pull it up. We also here have the .com pulled up here if you're watching on YouTube. So appreciate everybody tuning in as we are in the midst of my Midwestern goodbye. So thank you once again to everybody that tuned into the chat. We will be back. Sunday is the next game here coming up for Purdue. So Joe and Kraig will be handling the business.
Did you hear that? Greg just committed to being here Sunday. He said we will be back Sunday.
Joe and Kraig will be handling the business of things on Sunday. I will be finishing the Chicago Bears season, thankfully, as we are on a current 10-game losing streak, looking to finish the year on an 11-game losing streak. And, man, can I tell you, if you think you get annoyed with Boilers fans, man, should I introduce you to Chicago Bears Nation. We are a fun bunch, and it has been so much fun interacting with just such a warm and
fuzzy.
It is just such a nice fan base who has nothing but nice things to say to you as you try to give your opinions on the Chicago Bears. But hey, we do this because we love it. We love our teams, and that's what it's all about, is the passion that we have for the Purdue Boilermakers. So have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Purdue Boilermakers win here to start 2025. Happy New Year to all of you, and we'll continue to keep this party rolling as the season rolls along. So we will see you. Preview show probably coming up with these two guys, and then, of course, more post-game coverage coming up on Sunday. So stay tuned for all of that. And always, Boiler up.